If you're an older man and you've stopped having sex, here's what's going to happen to your body, your mind, and your life. It's not a scare tactic. It's a medical reality. No sugarcoating. No euphemisms. If you ignore this part of your life, the consequences will be far more serious than you think. And they've already started, whether you realize it or not. I'm Dr. Blake Morgan, board-certified urologist with over 30 years treating men just like you. So hit that subscribe button, because today's message could save your vitality and maybe even your life. Consequence 1. Your body will start to break down faster than it should. We often think of aging as a gradual, inevitable decline. Wrinkles, fatigue, aches and pains. Just the natural wear and tear of life, right? But what if I told you that a significant part of this decline, especially in how your body feels and functions, can be traced back to a lack of sexual activity? It's not just about pleasure. Sex triggers a cascade of biological processes that support your immune system, cardiovascular health, muscle tone, and hormonal balance. When those triggers vanish from your life, so do the benefits. Let's start with testosterone. Testosterone plays a crucial role in maintaining muscle mass, bone density, red blood cell production, and overall vitality. As you age, testosterone naturally declines. But when you stop engaging in sexual activity, that decline accelerates. In 2017, a study from the American Urological Association found that older men who remained sexually active maintained significantly higher testosterone levels, even into their 70s and 80s, compared to those who abstained completely. Why does this matter? Because low testosterone doesn't just mean a lower sex drive. It also means muscle atrophy, fatigue, and depression, reduced cognitive sharpness, increased risk of heart disease, frailty and balance issues, insomnia, and weakened immune function. And this is not theoretical. It's what happened to Martin, a 74-year-old man from Arizona. Martin had been in relatively good shape for most of his life. He was a retired firefighter, and even in his late 60s, he was hiking, playing golf, and spending hours outside with his grandkids. But after his wife passed, Martin went 5 years without any form of sexual intimacy. At first, he thought he was just grieving, but then the exhaustion set in. His doctor diagnosed him with muscle wasting, anemia, and mild cognitive decline. When Martin finally spoke with a urologist, they linked it back to severely low testosterone levels, worsened by total sexual inactivity. After working with a therapist and a medical team, Martin began a sexual wellness program that included solo and partnered intimacy, and his testosterone numbers improved within 6 months. So did his energy and sense of well-being. Sex, even in old age, acts as biological maintenance. It keeps systems running that are otherwise neglected. Now let's talk about your cardiovascular system. During sexual activity, your heart rate increases, blood vessels dilate, and circulation improves. It's comparable to light to moderate physical exercise. Men who continue to have sex into their later years show lower rates of hypertension, better arterial health, and reduced incidence of stroke. It's like a workout for your heart without stepping into a gym. Neglecting that workout means your heart muscles weaken, your blood flow suffers, and your risk of stroke, heart disease, and dementia goes up. A study from the University of Michigan tracked over 2,200 men over age 60. Those who reported regular sexual activity had 30% lower risk of cardiovascular events over the next 5 years compared to those who were abstinent. And don't forget, when you stop having sex, you're likely also cutting off physical touch. Touch releases oxytocin, reduces cortisol, and improves sleep quality. The absence of that is biologically stressful, and chronic stress ages you faster than anything else. To summarize, your body doesn't just lose sex, it loses the chain reaction of protective biological systems, and that opens the door to rapid aging. Next up, we'll explore what happens to your emotional health and mental resilience when sex disappears from your life. But first, have you ever felt older than your age, like your body was giving up too soon. What if that feeling wasn't just aging, but something you could still control? Consequence 2. You'll feel increasingly lonely. Even if you're not alone, there's a certain kind of loneliness that creeps in during old age. It's not the kind you feel when the house is empty or the kids don't call. It's deeper than that. It's the absence of intimate connection, the kind that sex used to create. When you stop having sex, you don't just lose the act. You lose the bonding, the vulnerability, the reassurance that you are still seen, still touched, still wanted. For decades, psychologists have studied how sexual connection acts like emotional glue in long-term relationships. In men, that bond becomes even more vital with age, as the ego weakens and emotional expression grows more difficult. Let me tell you about Gary and Linda, a couple from Ohio, both in their early 80s. They were high school sweethearts, married over 60 years. They had shared everything: kids, careers, travel. But in their late 70s, Gary began pulling away sexually. He said he was tired, that he didn't feel like himself. Linda took it personally. She worried that he no longer found her attractive. They stopped being physically intimate. And slowly that disconnection seeped into the rest of their lives. Meals were eaten in silence. Jokes weren't shared. Conversations became functional, not affectionate. Gary later confessed in a counseling session that he didn't stop wanting sex. He just felt ashamed of how his body had changed. He didn't know how to initiate intimacy without feeling embarrassed. Their loneliness wasn't from being alone, it was from being untouched. And this goes beyond relationships. A man without sexual intimacy, partnered or solo, often reports a growing sense of emotional detachment. He stops opening up. He stops taking risks. He stops making eye contact. And eventually, he stops seeking connection altogether. This type of isolation increases the risk of depression, anxiety, sleep disorders, substance abuse, even early death. Yes, the CDC recognizes social isolation as a health risk as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. A 2021 Harvard study found that older men who maintained physical and sexual intimacy, even if it was with themselves, were 40% less likely to report chronic loneliness. Why? Because sex at its core affirms your humanity. It's a reminder that you're still alive, still desirable, still a man. And when you lose that, you don't just feel alone, you feel invisible. There's an entire generation of elderly men suffering in silence, thinking that wanting sex at their age is inappropriate, that it's greedy, that it's unnatural. But the truth is, it's the most natural thing in the world. And reclaiming that truth can save your emotional life. Now let's talk about something even more personal: your confidence as a man. Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered where your spark went? The answer may be hidden in the part of your life you've been ignoring. Consequence 3. You'll begin to question your masculinity and self-worth. For men, especially those raised in the mid-20th century. Manhood was always tied to strength, control, purpose, and yes, sexuality. When sex disappears, many older men begin to question who they are. They wonder, am I still a man if I don't have sex? Does anyone desire me anymore? What's the point of getting up each day? This is not just philosophical. It's biological and psychological. Sexual activity reinforces identity. It boosts testosterone, which is directly linked to confidence, dominance, and clarity. It supports dopamine production, the brain's reward chemical. And it helps regulate your default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for self-reflection and identity. Take it away, and you're left with a void. I worked with a man named Elias, 79 years old, a retired Navy veteran. Strong, disciplined, proud. But when he came to me, he was broken. He hadn't had sex in over a decade, and he said, "I don't feel like a man anymore. I feel like a shadow." His words stuck with me. Not because he wasn't masculine, he was. But because his identity had been chained to a part of himself he thought he had to surrender. We worked together to rebuild that part. Not through sex with another person initially, but by helping Elias reestablish sexual agency. We talked about fantasy, about self-touch, about reclaiming pleasure without shame, and that changed everything. He stood taller. His voice grew stronger. He started mentoring young veterans again. That spark came back. Why? Because sex, your sexuality, is not optional in old age. It's essential to who you are. And when you abandon it, you also abandon part of your soul. Consequence 4. You'll lose the motivation to take care of yourself. One of the most overlooked consequences of not having sex in old age is how it slowly erodes your will to care for your body, mind, and spirit. When sexual energy diminishes or disappears, men often lose the drive that once made them shave regularly, dress well, eat better, and stay active. This isn't vanity, it's biology. Sex is deeply connected to a man's sense of vitality. When you feel sexually alive, you naturally want to move, to improve, to invest in your well-being. You become more aware of your posture, your habits, your image. When that's gone, so is the sense that it matters anymore. Take Raymond, a 71-year-old widower from Nevada. For most of his life, he was impeccably groomed. Even after retirement, he'd dress in button-down shirts every morning, go on long walks, eat well, and maintain a tidy home. But after he stopped having any sexual activity, not just intercourse but even solo intimacy, he began slipping. His daughter noticed it first. He stopped shaving. He started skipping meals. His walks turned into hours of TV on the couch. "I just didn't feel like myself anymore," Raymond admitted. "It was like I was living in grayscale." And this pattern is common. According to a 2020 report from the Journal of Aging and Health, men over 65 who reported no sexual activity in the past year were 3 times more likely to also report poor diet, sedentary behavior, and neglect of personal hygiene. It's a domino effect. Sexual neglect, decreased dopamine and oxytocin, decreased dopamine, right arrow, loss of motivation, and joy, less joy, right arrow, more neglect, neglect, right arrow, isolation, and health decline. The loop feeds itself. But here's what happens when you reignite your sexual life, even in small, solo ways. You care again. You look in the mirror and see a man worth investing in. You start brushing your teeth twice a day again. You comb your hair. You say yes to going outside. You sign up for that yoga class or walking club. Sexuality is life force. It's not just about arousal, it's about activation. When you cut it off, you slowly switch off the lights in your world. But when you keep it alive, even in the privacy of your own room, you tell yourself, "I'm still here, I still matter." What would change in your life if you simply felt wanted again? The answer may be simpler than you think. Consequence 5. You'll be at higher risk for cognitive decline. Yes, you heard that right. Sex isn't just about pleasure, it's also about brain function. Numerous studies in recent years have drawn a direct line between sexual activity and the preservation of cognitive ability in aging men. Here's how it works. Sexual activity stimulates the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, essential for mood and memory. It increases blood flow to the brain, which delivers oxygen and nutrients that protect neurons. It reduces inflammation and cortisol, 2 factors linked to neurodegeneration. In short, sex keeps your brain sharp. Consider this. A 2019 study published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior followed 1,700 men and women over 60 for 6 years. Those who engaged in sexual activity at least once a week scored significantly higher in memory, attention, and problem-solving tests than those who abstained. Now let me introduce you to Samuel, a retired math teacher in Boston. Samuel was sharp as a tack in his 60s, but by 73 he began forgetting simple things: his keys, appointments, even the names of familiar neighbors. His neurologist ruled out early Alzheimer's but noted significant cognitive slowing. During a consultation, Samuel admitted he hadn't been sexually active since his wife passed away 9 years earlier. He said he just didn't see the point. But under guidance, Samuel began to reintroduce sensual touch, fantasy, and solo intimacy into his life. Slowly, his recall and focus began to improve. His doctor even noted measurable changes in cognitive performance over 18 months. Sex, it turns out, is neuroprotective. You're not just giving up pleasure when you give up sex. You're giving up mental sharpness, emotional resilience, and the chemistry that keeps you present. Even in its most modest form, gentle affection, mindful touch, or private arousal, sexual activity tells your brain, we are alive, we are engaged, we are not done yet. Don't underestimate that message. Your mind needs it more than you know. Still think sex is just about physical need. Or is it something far deeper, something that could be your lifeline to staying alive, connected, and whole? So let's come back to where we started. If you don't have sex in old age, this will happen to you. Not because you're being punished. Not because you're broken. But because you're letting go of one of the few things that can still light up every part of your being: your body, your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We've talked about 5 major consequences. Your body will start to break down faster. You'll feel increasingly lonely. Even if you're not alone, you'll begin to question your masculinity and self-worth. You'll lose the motivation to take care of yourself. You'll be at higher risk for cognitive decline. But each one of those consequences is preventable. Not with miracle pills or expensive treatments, but with reconnection to yourself, your desires, your intimacy, your worth. You don't need a partner to reclaim your sexual vitality. You need permission. Permission to stop feeling ashamed. Permission to explore your body again. Permission to speak your needs. Permission to love the man you still are. Remember this: you are not too old, you are not too late, and you are absolutely not alone. Sex in old age isn't just about sex. It's about staying alive, fully, vibrantly, unapologetically. So go live, because the best part of you is still very much here.